years. Thank you, Pete, for being here.
So when you'll do this panel, do another panel, where do you go from there? Are you heading to the Hill? Are you heading over to the White House? What does this look like in the next days and weeks?
We went early to the White House and explained to the staff what we were about, what we thought we were doing. I would say they were very eager to receive the message. And so we'll see how this plays out, and we'll go to the Hill and we'll talk to our colleagues, and we're going to do some of that today, and we'll continue to do it. I mean, this is I'm very proud of this report in terms of so much of what goes on in our lives and on Capitol Hill is atmospherics, and I think this helps. I think this helps with recognizing real legitimate needs and the help the federal government can provide.
Yeah, I have not been particularly engaged in public policy here in Washington, D.C. now for about 10 years, not by choice. And but over the last 6-8 months, I actually have gotten back into it, I guess in this case by choice, but not because I really wanted to, because I felt I was compelled to, because I saw a train wreck on healthcare. And so I've been engaged in the healthcare issue, talking to members of the Senate quite extensively. And so that's going to continue for the next few months. So now I have 2 things to talk to them about.
So you both seem to have been enriched by this experience, or gotten to know each other pretty well, and seem to really be enjoying it and have a lot of respect for each other. Was that born out of this process? Was that already there?
Go ahead.
See,
we're just chomping at the bit to go. Go ahead.
Okay. I look back on my political career, and the things that I talk about now and people ask me about are the things that I was able to get accomplished. And I can't recall anything that I accomplished when I was in the House or Senate that wasn't bipartisan. I mean, it's just, that's the way it had to happen. Otherwise, you couldn't pass anything. And I worked together with some people that, we got 2 folks from California. I mean, I had 3 fairly significant pieces of legislation I passed with Barbara Boxer. I mean, who would have thought that, right? I mean, no one would have thought that Barbara Boxer and I had ever worked together on anything, because we fought like brothers and sisters. I mean, on a lot of very high-profile issues. But one of the things that I always believed in is that, if you can go to someone who's your polar opposite on the other side and find consensus there, it's easy. If you can get that consensus with a Barbara Boxer or George Miller or Pete Stark or somebody like that, then going to your caucus and him going to our caucus, it just makes it a lot easier sell. And so as Jason said in our breakfast this morning, the idea that you can start ideas in the middle and build from out, I've never seen that ever work. The problem is the folks on the ends of the party aren't talking to each other anymore. And there are a lot of reasons for it, which, that's a whole nother forum. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of talk in the middle, but that doesn't get you very far. It's because you can't win with the votes in the middle. You've got to have a broader platform of support, which means that the ends of the party have to start finding common ground where they can. And there is now an incentive in both parties not to find common ground. And that's because you're not pure. And whether you're the hard left or the hard right, if you're not pure, you don't win presidential primaries, you don't win your primaries for the Senate or the House, and that makes it very, very difficult to take the risk of talking. And I think this just shows when you can talk, there are some things. I mean, George would have wanted a very different report if he was writing it himself. I would have a very different report if I was writing it myself. But to go out there as we did, I mean, I'm sure that there will be folks on the right who will attack me And the things that I'm supporting here is not being, quote, pure. And if I was running for something, that would be a problem. I could end up with a primary opponent. And the same would happen here. How dare you work with someone as radical as Rick Santorum? I mean, he comes from the Bay Area. I mean, my numbers aren't real good in the Bay Area. So, right? Yeah. So I mean, there are risks inherent with doing things like this, with reaching out to folks on the extremes, if you will. And not that I think George's extreme where I am, but that's how we're viewed in this town, and it makes it a very difficult place to get things done as a result.
There's no question about it. I had as successful run as you could possibly have in the Congress over 40 years. None of it happened on a partisan basis where you just blow through it. You might have got a law. Nobody spent time enacting it. So it doesn't work that way. And I think what the Senator is bringing to the Congress is that this is a conversation, and this is a recognition of problems that are dynamic. They're on the move. Families are formed, pregnancies happen, children start school, people become addicted. All of this is happening every day around the clock. And in many instances, the outcomes are getting worse. In other instances, we've demonstrated you can change the outcomes and have greater success. But all that's dynamic. So the longer you want to have partisan fights, the more casualties there are among our families and among our communities. And so I think that's the urgency, and I think it's the urgency when you look at the list of topics that we outlined here, and certainly the opioid one on top. That sense of urgency demands that kind of conversation. Going home and holding on to your position and while your house is burning down doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And so we like to think that that's what the Senator's tried to do, not just on this subject but others, is you guys have been fighting for so long, you forgot one another's names. Let's just start over here. And I think that's what we hope to be able to do, because there's an awful lot of evidence that things can get much, much better when you do them right, and they can get really expensive and frightening when you neglect them. Let me just say, when you continue to argue and not attend to the emergency.
That's great.